Talk to me.
This morning I watched a video on Iceland.
Iceland?
Iceland. Did I say? No, I said I meant Greenland. Kind of reminds me of the test of Scripture.
Are you meaning this to be an illustration of manuscript evidence, or manuscript evidence to be analogous to the map making 500 years ago?
Yes. Hi, I'm Beth.
And I'm Larry. Welcome to
Table Talk Tuesday. So I typically tell you what's on my mind when you get up and you just listen because you're too sleepy to not listen. Or I think you're listening.
I'm listening and I'm not sleepy. It's just I don't wake up in the morning with my mouth automatically going. So, talk to me.
Okay, so my most interesting thing that came to mind this morning, it wasn't super spiritual or anything. A lot of times we have discussions about what the Lord's been saying. This morning I was focused on getting the recording done and how I was going to set up for all that. And so I only had a little bit of time to just sit and I usually sit in my recliner. Most mornings it's like an hour before I go wake up Larry. He stays up late. He takes the night shift. I take the day shift as far as morning and night goes. So you stay up pretty late working. And that's the other thing. So Larry does all this translation work. He's working on, right now, the book of Acts. And so we call it his night job, that he works on the book of Acts at night, translation work. And then the videos that we do that are teaching or otherwise, we call those talking head videos. I guess these will be our table talk videos because it's a little bit different. But so when we say, talking head, we're talking about the teaching. In other words, it's Larry talking. We try to get one of those out a week. We had originally hoped, and I think we can still come very close to it, if not right on it, that we would still continue to get one chapter of Acts out a week. Our best intentions get disrupted just a little bit because it ends up being a lot more work than we first think we can do, I guess. This is Buddy. Hey, Buddy. Okay, hold on. Come on up. All right. So.
Wonder how that sounds on the mic.
Yeah, I know. Night job is translation. Day job, this is in theory. It doesn't always work out exactly this way, but night job is translation. Day job is other research study for the teaching videos. And depending on where we are in getting things done might determine whether or not he has to work on something different at night. And so I typically in the morning, I ask Larry 2 questions, just kind of get the conversation started. Question 1, how was your blood sugar? We already did that. So question 2, how'd it go last night, honey?
Well, in anticipation of being ready for a recording deadline, I worked on the teaching video, what Beth likes to call the talking head videos. So I didn't actually get around to translating more of Acts chapter 20.
So do you think we'll record today for the...
I think maybe we can.
It's like, which dog wants to be on camera more? You want to come up here? Come on. There you go. Come on. There you go. This is Bella. All right, Bella is a little bit more behaved at the table, so we'll have her up here for a little bit.
Yeah. She's a 9-year-old and Buddy's not yet 2, so there is a definite difference in the energy level at which she gets up into Beth's lap versus Buddy just rocket propelling himself into her lap.
Okay, where were we?
Teaching video.
Yeah, so we'll record the teaching video. Hopefully, is today?
Today is Wednesday.
Today is Wednesday. Y'all will see this on a Tuesday if everything goes the way we plan. So we're recording
this table talk.
This table talk will be
Table Talk Tuesday.
Yeah, and that means I'll release the video on a Tuesday, not necessarily that it's recorded on a Tuesday. And so this is, what is today's date?
Today is Wednesday. The date? February 4th.
Okay, so this is February 4th. So we'll release it next Tuesday. If all goes well, we'll see. This is new for us. We've never done a conversational type video before. So, okay, so my interesting thing this morning, totally off topic. Well, maybe not. I don't know. I confuse the poor algorithm on YouTube because I have such a scatterbrained ADHD interest in various different things. And so 1 minute it'll think I'm on one subject, and then all of a sudden I'm ping-ponging off onto another one. So anyway, this morning I watched a video on Iceland from a historical map professionalist. I don't know if that's what he would call himself. But anyway. Iceland. Did I say? No, I said I meant Greenland.
You meant, that's what I'm asking.
Yes,
did you mean Greenland or Iceland?
I meant Greenland.
Not where David was stationed.
No, I meant Greenland. Okay. So it was on Greenland. And so what was interesting was there was all these different ancient maps of Greenland back in the 1500s. And Greenland is green with mountains and people and rivers. And by comparison, on every single map today, Greenland is a white blob, totally flat. And it's not totally flat. And so geologists know that there are mountains under Greenland, and there's a theory or a I don't know if it's a theory or if it's provable or what, but that the weight of the ice has literally pushed Greenland lower and approximately or below sea level. And now it's just a block of ice for the most part. That's the theory. But it's a question as to why in the world are they not showing the topography of Greenland on Google Maps and other maps? Because we can map the ocean floor, we can map distant planets, but when we look at any publicly available map of Greenland, except for the edges, it's one flat white surface. It just looks blocked out. And so what this guy was doing was showing the historical maps and even historical things that we have recorded of expeditions and their canals and all kinds of things that cut through Greenland and a mountain range. And anyway, the narrative of today is that Greenland's been covered with ice for millions and millions of years. And okay, so about 500 years ago, there was evidently, weather-wise, there was a mini ice age or something. And okay, so what if Greenland did not get covered with ice millions of years ago, but got covered with ice 500 years ago? First of all, that really goes against all the climate issues. That's one aspect, but I think the official narrative about all these ancient maps is that basically people made stuff up because they didn't know, which is interesting because you've got multiple. It's not just like a person, and the maps don't copy each other. It kind of reminds me of the test of scripture. Well, this would be an interesting conversation. You were talking about in the manuscripts. Like if everything is getting slightly different viewpoints of something is actually more evidence that it happened. Like when a police officer is interviewing multiple witnesses, if he gets word for word the exact story over and over again, it is suspected they all got together and made up their story and memorized it, and now they're presenting it. Whereas if you get different, it's still the same story looked at from different viewpoints.
Expressed in different words. Exactly. So apply that principle to maps, and you've got different, I don't know what these guys are called, map makers. Cartographers.
Okay. And more ancient, they go there, they do it differently.
Cartographers? Cartographers.
Okay. I take your word for it. So they will have variations or different viewpoints because they're each individually coming at it maybe from literally a different viewpoint and trying to map the same thing. And so the fact that there may be slight variations about where a particular canal is located, not being, or something like that, that's expected.
What does an elephant look like?
Right. So these ancient maps, they're like that, and about Greenland. And yet they all have the same mountain ranges, the same, indication that there was vegetation, that people were living on the more in the interior of Greenland, and all of this. So if that's true, then somewhere underneath that frozen land will be evidence, and it is melting. Greenland is melting.
So are you meaning this to be an illustration of manuscript evidence, or manuscript evidence to be analogous to the map making 500 years ago?
Yes. I don't know. I didn't even think about the manuscript connection until just now. But
well, in the manuscript aspect, the reason it does present an interesting analogy. The Greek New Testament was originally written in Greek, and the copies of that we have preserved have been discovered over 2,000 years, essentially. But in more recent times, with the Renaissance and Reformation era, manuscripts began to be discovered, more accessed, referenced, because reformers were going back to the sources, skipping over the Latin Vulgate of the Roman Catholic Church and going back to the sources of Hebrew and Greek, which they hadn't done Hebrew because of the mindset of Hebrew was the language of the people that killed Jesus. And then with the split between the Roman Catholic Church, between the Romans and the Greeks, the two population centers, the two capitals, if you will, of Rome versus Constantinople in 1054 AD, I believe, somewhere in the middle of the 11th century, 1054, I think. There was the split between the Eastern and the Western branches of the church. And so we have the Eastern Orthodox versus the Roman Catholic. And so they hadn't, for hundreds of years, until the time of Erasmus in the early 16th century, Desiderius Erasmus edited and had published his first edition of the Greek New Testament with a side-by-side of Latin in 1516. And so they weren't focused on reading the Greek. People had to even learn the Greek first before they began to teach Greek in Oxford, Cambridge, and they then tried to shorten this. They weren't focused on the manuscripts that were existing. Of course, manuscript means handwritten, so everything before the printing press in the middle of the 15th century, with 1450 something or other, Gutenberg's printing press utilizing movable metal type printout, therefore mass produce. Prior to that, things were done by copying by hand, extensive and expensive proposition. And these manuscripts were preserving the New Testament in Greek for all the time from the first century up to that 16th century. And they had fewer available to them at the time, but there have been more and more discovered as time goes on. At this present day, there's something on the order of 5,800 manuscripts of the Greek New Testament that are in existence. Now, they vary in terms of what books they have. We're not talking about 5,800 copies of bound Bibles with 66 books in them, or even if you're talking about the New Testament, 27 books in them. You're usually talking about the bound letters of Paul, or the Gospel of Luke, or what book of Acts, whatever it is. And so these were early days in scroll and later in book form, as we know, book, codex. And all of those 5,800 manuscripts are not complete. Some of them are very fragmentary, but the total number of them that we have is 5,800 manuscripts. Now, with 5,800 manuscripts, people that subscribe to King James only theory, or what they call textus receptus, received text only theory, don't like the idea of God preserving his word in this fashion. But the indisputable fact is there are, of the manuscripts that we have today, there are variant readings. There are thousands of variant readings. But there are two opposite errors involved in this. One is to say there are 100,000 errors in the Bible. We can't trust the Bible. You've got copies of copies of copies, and you can't know what it says. And anyone who would tell you that would lie to you about something else. The other extreme is to say God preserved his word. We know what the Greek is because we know what the King James is our standard. King James in 1611. King James was based on the Textus Receptus form of the text. That's the way God has preserved his word. And both viewpoints are in error. But I guess in this analogy, more to the point of the error of multiple variants, thousands of variants, undermine the veracity of the New Testament. On the contrary, it is a proof of it. The variant readings show us that this was no elaborate scheme of concocting a narrative, concocting a fairy tale, and passing it off as real. It is proof that they did not create one narrative and not deviate from that at all. You have people copying it, but then the nature of the errors called errors are really copyist errors. They are not errors of...
And there's no major doctrine.
Well, I was getting there. There is no errors of fundamental fact, like, there is no book, chapter, and verse in a certain variant that says 2 + 2 = 5. But to the other aspect that Beth mentioned, there is, in the overwhelming majority of the manuscripts, variant readings, you don't have any doctrine that, is taught in these variant readings. Well, Mary and Joseph fooled around and she got pregnant. Or Jesus died on the cross and the disciples came and defeated the Roman soldiers guarding the tomb and stole the body. Jesus is not God. Any of these heretical teachings, there's nothing like that in the variant readings that are preserved. So you have variant readings that preserve differences due to copyist error. And that can be, I love textual criticism, by the way. I could do this way more than you would probably want to listen to. But as I have studied the Greek New Testament for decades and compared edited editions of that Greek text, including scanned images of the Erasmus editions. He produced 5 editions from 1516 to 1535, I believe it was, in his lifetime. And those 5 editions varied slightly from one another, but essentially show the same form of text. And from those scanned images to a newly edited edition that's coming out this year, there are many of them, and I've collected them over the years, and I've studied them over the years. And the variants that you find in the New Testament are overwhelmingly things like, is it Jesus Christ or Christ Jesus? Is this word spelled with an epsilon iota or just an iota? EI versus I. There was a shift in pronunciation of language where, let's see, EI, epsilon iota, the I by itself, iota, the omicron iota, OI, and the epsilon, all of those are pronounced E. And so you have spelling variations. And again, that even goes back to the time frame where there was no standardization of spellings. And that was even true in the time of English, that you go to the King James Version even in 1611, you still find that original 1611 version has different spelling variations in its printed text. So common thing that you have people spelling words differently based on how it sounds and what they thought it would be spelled like. And even if it differed from somebody else's and they noticed it, they wouldn't have necessarily thought anything of it. So spelling variants, word order variants, sometimes the spelling variants have no difference in meaning to the word, to the form of the noun, or the parsing of the verb. And sometimes the spelling difference will make a difference. In my translating of Acts, more than once I've come across where an aorist subjunctive, it has a variant to it that reads as a future. But anyway, help me out of this. I'm getting too much caught up in that which is just meant to be an analogy, but you keep messing with that thing.
Oh, mute button. I muted it for a while, so.
Okay.
Because it didn't need you picking up and thumping the table. So, I wasn't talking. Anyway, that's all.
Well, now I don't know what you muted while I was talking, but anyway.
Not you. You have yours on your neck.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I just muted mine because I wasn't talking. So you are different when there's a third person in the room. That's okay. It's not like I don't know this person. I do.
Well, and we've had conversations on this very topic before where you're mainly listening.
I know. It's okay. Buddy. I said it would be cute when the dogs got in the videos, but it's like, I think they took me very seriously. What are you doing? Okay.
Well, they're waiting for the next stage of things too. Anyway, so the analogy that you're making illustrates the whole aspect of manuscript evidence and textual evidence. And that's a subject I'm just going to stop myself because I've gotten into the weeds on making what was originally an analogy to one thought be a subject unto itself in this. And so I'm going to back out of that now.
I mean, this happens so often. It was interesting that the whole thing about Greenland came up. And I did think of the map making. Map making is just another type of manuscript, I guess, of some information of a certain age and time. That's what I'm talking about.
Mass production of printing wasn't done before then. So if you had maps made prior to the printing press, they were hand copied.
Okay. So I'm really curious about that because Larry remembers names, dates, times, all of that very, very well. And I'm like the opposite. I couldn't be more opposite. So I could be wrong on the date. For some reason, it did seem like one of those maps was 13 something or another, but I could be wrong. Definitely 1400s and 1500s I remember being shown. And the overall point is that different, I don't know what to call them. I guess it's not like a scribe copying one document like we have in the scriptures, but it is, or a copy of a copy, in the map making, in this where the example is not quite the same. It's not. In fact, it's obvious that one map maker was not copying another map maker. It was different eyewitnesses. It would be like, I guess the comparison there would be like, do the four Gospels tell the same story? And they do. It's four different people that were eyewitnesses of Christ, and they present the same story, but they're definitely presenting from a different viewpoint.
A different perspective, different wording, and that's not a bad thing.
Right.
In an earlier teaching video, I talked about the Apostle Paul quoting from the Gospels, quoting Jesus, and it could potentially be one of two. What Paul was quoting could be one of two, although I'm 99.9% certain it was quoting from Luke, not Matthew. But in Matthew chapter 10, the Lord was telling his disciples, calling them apostles, as he was about to send them forth. What apostle means, apostolos, one sent forth. And as they were about to go, he was telling them, you stay with whoever will take you in, and you eat what they serve you, because the laborer is worthy of his food. In Luke's gospel, that quote is, the laborer is worthy of his wages, worthy of his hire. The difference is in that essentially one word difference. I believe there is a definite article accompanying the noun, but anyway, in case they would agree. But essentially a one word difference between the two verses, but they were spoken by Jesus on two separate occasions. One was the sending out of the 12, and the other was the sending out of the 70. And so they were spoken on different occasions, but it shows, for one thing, Jesus had teachings that he would share, and he would share them on more than one occasion, applying it to similar but not exactly the same circumstances and context, and might utilize different words at different times. So there's a lot to. Am I banging the table or something? Is that
Yeah, but that's okay.
Okay. So that's all I got to say about that.
I would have thought Greenland would have a spiritual application.
Yeah.
One more thing, because I can make a parallel here too. The particular video kind of wrapped it up with saying, everybody's agreeing that Greenland is melting. I forget I'll put it on the screen how many tons of ice have melted in the last how many ever years, because again, I don't remember the exact numbers, but it is a fact that there is a melting going on, and some of the edges are getting more revealed, and these rivers and maybe canals are actually beginning to show. And so what the map maker that was doing the video was pointing out was it will either eventually reveal one version is the truth or the other version is the truth. And eventually the truth of the Bible's message is going to be revealed. Either when each individual dies and what they face after their death, or in the coming of our Lord, and in times if they're revealed as prophesied. Or
you're talking softer.
I'm talking softer. I know, but I got my microphone.
Okay.
So yeah, I'm
So
in the end, truth will be revealed, and it's just truth will be truth. It'll be what it is. So
that's another analogy.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the challenge is to seek truth. And anyway, you want to wrap us up?
That's a wrap. No.
If this makes it online, the editing process will shorten it down and produce something of interest. Maybe it may just be a video of the beagles being cute. I don't know.
It may be something for family to laugh at after we're gone.
Right. I do know that we have very often had conversations at the table where it's like, why are we not recording this? This is so good. And so,
that's her opinion.
Oh, you said it too.
Well, when I start waxing elephants about textual criticism or something, I really enjoy the subjects I love. I really enjoy talking about them, and I get into significance of them. All right.
Okay. So thank you guys for joining us, and we will see if you see us at another table talk.
We'll see if this works.
Okay, bye.